The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 17 different species gathered around the massive holographic display. The blue-skinned Zephyrians fidgeted with their ceremonial robes, while the crystalline Vorthak clicked their mineral appendages against the polished floor. At the center of it all, High Chancellor Zirian's 4 eyes focused intently on the data streaming across the screen. "The reports are confirmed," announced Intelligence Director Kylath, her serpentine form coiling around the speaker's podium. "The species calling themselves humans have achieved faster-than-light travel. They've begun exploring beyond their home system." A collective shudder ran through the assembly. The Galactic Council had been monitoring Earth for centuries, watching with growing horror as humanity developed. Their capacity for violence was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Wars that lasted decades, weapons that could destroy entire continents, and a relentless drive for conquest that seemed to know no bounds. "Their military capabilities are concerning," continued Kylath, manipulating the holographic display to show footage from Earth's history. Images of nuclear explosions, massive armies, and devastating battles filled the chamber. They've fought continuously for their entire recorded history. Even their entertainment media glorifies warfare. The Milari ambassador, a peaceful plant-like being, rustled his leaves in distress. "In all our observations, we've never seen a species so dedicated to conflict. They've turned killing into an art form." Chancellor Zirian's primary arms gestured toward the display showing Earth's current military assets. "Their weapons technology has advanced at an alarming rate. These nuclear weapons they possess could sterilize entire worlds. And now they have the means to bring this destruction to other star systems." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council had maintained peace through diplomacy and mutual cooperation. The most violent conflicts in recent memory had been trade disputes that resulted in strongly worded diplomatic protests. The concept of total warfare was alien to most species present. "What do we know about their intentions?" asked the Altarian representative, his crystalline voice resonating through the chamber's translation system. Kylath manipulated the display again, showing intercepts of human communications and cultural analysis reports. "Their literature and media are filled with stories of conquest and expansion. They speak of manifest destiny and exploring strange new worlds. But their history suggests they view first contact as an opportunity for either domination or destruction." The evidence was overwhelming. Humanity had never encountered another intelligent species without attempting to either conquer them or drive them to extinction. Their own planet bore the scars of countless genocides and territorial expansions. Even their peaceful exploration was often followed by military occupation and resource exploitation. "We must consider our options carefully," Chancellor Zarian said, his voice carrying the weight of leadership. "If we make contact, we risk exposing our worlds to their aggression. But if we ignore them, they may discover us anyway, and we'll lose the advantage of preparation." The Corvani delegate, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline housing, pulsed with concern. "Their psychological profiles are particularly disturbing. They seem to thrive on conflict and competition. Even their sports and games simulate warfare." Additional data streams showed human military training, their complex command structures, and their sophisticated tactical doctrines. Every aspect of their society seemed geared toward conflict preparation, even during peacetime. They maintained standing armies, developed new weapons during periods of peace, and their greatest heroes were often military leaders. "The most troubling aspect," Kylath continued, "is their pack mentality. When threatened, they don't flee or surrender like most civilized species. Instead, they become more dangerous, more unpredictable. Their history shows that external pressure only strengthens their resolve." The council members exchanged worried glances across species lines. The Zephyrians had evolved from prey animals and possessed strong flight instincts. The Vorthak were silicon-based beings who valued order and predictability above all else. The very concept of a species that became more dangerous when cornered was terrifying to contemplate. "There's another concern," added the Torellian ambassador, her blue skin shifting to darker hues of worry. Our xenobiologists believe humans may be apex predators. Their forward-facing eyes, their pursuit hunting patterns, their tool-making abilities, everything suggests they evolved to kill. The chamber filled with the sounds of distress from various species. Clicks, whistles, rustling, and harmonic resonances created a symphony of fear. Most council species had evolved from herbivores or peaceful omnivores. The idea of intelligent apex predators achieving spaceflight was the stuff of nightmares. Chancellor Zarian called for order, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of authority. We must make a decision. Do we attempt peaceful contact, hoping to guide them toward our civilized standards? Do we establish a quarantine zone around their system? Or do we take more decisive action? The suggestion hung in the air like a poison cloud. The Galactic Council had never seriously considered preemptive action against an emerging species. But humanity represented an unprecedented threat. Their capacity for destruction, combined with their apparent love of violence, created a scenario that terrified even the most optimistic council members. Perhaps we should observe them longer, suggested the Malari ambassador. Study their behavior patterns more thoroughly before making contact. Time is a luxury we may not have, Kyleth replied. Their expansion rate is accelerating. They've already established preliminary colonies in their outer system. Our projections suggest they'll achieve interstellar colonization within 50 solar cycles. The debate continued for hours, with species after species sharing their fears and concerns. The humans' apparent disregard for environmental destruction, their hierarchical social structures based on dominance, and their seemingly insatiable appetite for resources, painted a picture of a species that could destabilize the entire galactic community. As the session drew to a close, Chancellor Zarian summarized their dilemma. We face a choice that will define the future of galactic civilization. Humanity represents either the greatest threat our peaceful galaxy has ever known, or an opportunity to prove that even the most violent species can be guided toward enlightenment. The vote was scheduled for the next day, but everyone in the chamber knew the decision would be influenced by fear rather than hope. The humans were coming, whether the galaxy was ready or not, and their reputation for violence preceded them like a dark storm across the stars. 3 months after the Galactic Council's heated debate, their worst fears seemed to be materializing. The human exploration vessel Pioneer's Dream had crossed into the outer reaches of the Kepler 442 system, home to the peaceful Altarian colony of New Harmony. The crystalline beings who inhabited the world were known throughout the galaxy for their artistic achievements and philosophical wisdom, making them perhaps the least prepared species to encounter humanity's perceived aggression. Emergency Council sessions had been called daily since the human ship's detection. The vessel itself appeared deceptively small compared to typical Galactic Council ships, but intelligence reports suggested it was heavily armed despite its exploration designation. Humans, it seemed, couldn't even explore peacefully without bringing weapons of war. The situation is deteriorating rapidly, reported Kylath during the latest emergency briefing. The humans have established an orbital observation post and deployed what appear to be military satellites around the planet. The Altarians are in a state of panic. The holographic display showed the human ship's activities in real time. Strange geometric structures had been deployed in strategic positions around New Harmony, creating what military analysts believe to be a defensive perimeter. The humans were clearly establishing a beachhead for invasion, just as their historical patterns suggested they would. Chancellor Zarian's 4 eyes showed the strain of sleepless cycles. Have the Altarians attempted communication? They're too terrified, replied the Altarian representative, his crystalline form dim with fear. Our people remember the stories from the old archives, tales of warrior species that consumed worlds. They believe the humans have come to harvest our mineral wealth. The fear wasn't entirely unreasonable. Human industrial capabilities were legendary in their destructiveness. They had strip-mined their own planet extensively and showed little regard for environmental preservation during their development. The Altarians, being silicon-based life forms themselves, naturally worried about becoming raw materials for human manufacturing. What of our contact protocols? asked the Milari ambassador. "Should we not attempt diplomatic intervention?" Kyla's serpentine form coiled tighter around her position. Our xenopsychologists advise extreme caution. Humans have never encountered another intelligent species. Their reaction to first contact could be explosive. Their mythology is filled with stories about hostile alien invasions, suggesting they view the universe through a lens of perpetual conflict. The irony wasn't lost on the council members. They feared human aggression so much that they had become the paranoid watchers they imagined humans expected to find. But the evidence seemed to support their caution. Human entertainment media was obsessed with alien threats, from invasive parasites to technological assimilation to outright extermination. They seemed to assume the worst about any potential alien encounter. "The situation has changed," announced Intelligence Director Kylath, her voice carrying an ominous tone. "We've detected another human vessel approaching the system. This one is definitely military in nature." The holographic display updated to show a larger, more angular vessel bearing obvious weapon emplacements and armor plating. Unlike the exploration ship, this one made no attempt to disguise its warlike nature. It bristled with what appeared to be missile launchers, energy weapon arrays, and defensive countermeasures. "They're bringing reinforcements," whispered the Corvani delegate, his energy form flickering with distress. "The invasion is beginning." The panic in the chamber was palpable. Species that had known peace for millennia suddenly faced the prospect of witnessing their first interstellar war. The humans hadn't even made official first contact yet, but they were already deploying military assets. It seemed to confirm every worst-case scenario the Council had imagined. "We must intervene," declared Chancellor Zarian, his voice cutting through the growing hysteria. "If we allow this situation to escalate, it could destabilize the entire sector. The Altarians are requesting evacuation assistance." The logistics of evacuating an entire world were staggering, but several Council species had already volunteered their transport fleets. The crystalline beings of New Harmony had contributed so much to galactic culture that losing them to human aggression was unthinkable. "Wait," interrupted the Torellian ambassador, her blue skin shifting to puzzled purple patterns. "I'm receiving updated sensor data from the system. The human activities, they're not what we initially believed." New information streamed across the holographic display, showing detailed scans of the human installations around New Harmony. The geometric structures they had deployed weren't weapon emplacements or mining operations. They were sophisticated sensor arrays and communication relays designed for observation and data collection rather than conquest. "Our translation algorithms have been working on intercepted human communications," Kylath reported, her voice uncertain for the first time in cycles. "The messages are confusing. They speak of first contact protocols and peaceful observation guidelines. Their military ship appears to be maintaining a defensive posture, not preparing for attack." The confusion deepened as more intelligence arrived. The humans had detected the Altarian civilization and were apparently following some kind of internal procedure for dealing with the discovery. Rather than immediately landing and claiming territory, they had established a respectful observation distance and appeared to be studying Altarian culture from afar. "This doesn't match their historical patterns," mused the Vorthak representative, his crystalline form resonating with puzzlement. "According to our analysis, humans should have established a military beachhead and begun resource extraction by now. But instead, the human ships maintained their positions in the outer system, making no aggressive moves toward New Harmony itself. Their communications, when finally decoded, revealed extensive discussions about something called the Prime Directive, and debates about the ethics of contacting a less technologically advanced civilization. They're restraining themselves," realized the Milari ambassador, his leaves rustling with surprise. "The military vessel appears to be there for protection, not invasion. They're protecting their exploration ship from potential threats." The revelation hit the council chamber like a psychic shockwave. The species they had feared as galactic conquerors were apparently following their own ethical guidelines about first contact. The military ship wasn't there to support an invasion. It was there because humans, assumed space was dangerous and wanted to protect their explorers from unknown threats. But their violent history, began the Zephyrian delegate, may not represent their current values, interrupted Chancellor Zarian, his analytical mind racing through the implications. Intelligent species evolve culturally as well as technologically. Perhaps humans have developed beyond their primitive aggressive phase. The chamber fell silent as council members grappled with this new perspective. They had been so focused on humanity's violent past that they had failed to consider the possibility of cultural evolution. The same species that had once fought brutal wars had also produced art, music, and literature celebrating peace and cooperation. We may have misunderstood them completely, admitted Kylath, her intelligence network suddenly seeming inadequate. Our focus on their military capabilities may have blinded us to their diplomatic potential. As the session continued, a startling picture began to emerge. The humans in the Kepler 442 system were following carefully constructed protocols designed specifically to avoid contaminating or disturbing discovered civilizations. They were observing, learning, and apparently debating among themselves about the proper way to proceed, the galaxy's most feared. Emerging species might actually be more ethical in their approach to first contact than the Galactic Council itself, which had been spying on them for centuries without ever announcing its presence. The tension in the Kepler 442 system reached a breaking point when an unexpected third party arrived. The Hegemony of Destruction, a militant faction that had been expelled from Galactic Council space centuries ago, detected the unusual activity and decided to investigate. Unlike the peaceful species of the Council, the Hegemony had evolved from apex predators and viewed the galaxy through a lens of conquest and domination. Their massive, dreadnought Soul Crusher dropped out of hyperspace with weapons already charged. Its hull scarred from countless battles across the Outer Rim territories. The ship's commander, War Marshal Thrax, had built his reputation on enslaving entire civilizations and stripping worlds bare of resources. To him, the peaceful Altarians represented nothing more than potential slaves, and the unknown human ships were either prey or competition to be eliminated. "Analysis complete," reported Thrax's tactical officer, a cybernetically enhanced being whose species had been conquered decades earlier. 2 unknown vessels of primitive design, orbital installations around an inhabited world. The planet shows signs of advanced crystal-based technology. Thrax's predatory grin revealed rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Excellent. We'll harvest the crystal beings for the slave markets and claim their technology. Eliminate the unknown ships first, they might interfere with our operations." The Hegemony. Dreadnought was a terrifying sight, bristling with weapons designed for one purpose: overwhelming destruction. Its hull mounted plasma cannons capable of melting continents, missile pods that could saturate entire orbital zones, and boarding pods filled with cybernetically enhanced warriors bred for close combat. Aboard the human exploration ship Pioneers, Dream, Captain Sarah Chun watched the massive vessel appear on their sensors with growing alarm. The ship's design was unlike anything in their databases, but its hostile intent was unmistakable as weapon systems powered up and targeting sensors locked onto their position. "Contact the Guardian," Chun ordered, referring to the military escort ship that had been maintaining a protective distance. "We have an unknown hostile contact. Recommend immediate withdrawal to safe distance." The response came from Commander Marcus Torres aboard the military vessel. "Negative, Pioneer. We're not abandoning the Altarians to whatever that thing has planned." Initiating defensive protocols. The human military ship Guardian was a fraction of the size of the Hegemony dreadnought, built for patrol duties rather than major fleet engagements. Its crew of 200 seemed insignificant compared to the thousands of warriors aboard the enemy vessel. But what the humans lacked in numbers, they made up for in training, technology, and something the Galactic Council had failed to understand: tactical adaptability. Commander Torres had served in the Titan War, humanity's most recent major conflict, where outnumbered human forces had repeatedly defeated superior numbers through superior tactics and coordination. He studied the approaching dreadnought with the eye of a professional soldier, looking for weaknesses in its design. Analysis shows overlapping weapon coverage but potential blind spots at the engine nacelles, reported the Guardian's tactical officer. Their power distribution suggests they're designed to overwhelm through brute force rather than tactical precision. Typical, Torres muttered. All offense, no finesse. Signal the Pioneer to move to minimum safe distance and begin recording everything. If we don't make it out of this, at least Earth will know what we faced. The hegemony attack began with characteristic brutality. Dozens of plasma bolts lanced out toward the human ships, each one capable of vaporizing a city block. But the humans had already begun evasive maneuvers, their smaller ships darting between the energy beams with surprising agility. "They're faster than expected," admitted Thrax's tactical officer. "Shall we launch fighters?" "No," growled the war marshal. "I want to see what these primitives can do before I crush them. Perhaps they'll provide some entertainment before they die." The Guardian responded to the attack with precision fire from its main guns, targeting the Dreadnought's weapon emplacements rather than attempting to penetrate its heavy armor. Each shot was carefully calculated to disable rather than destroy, following human military doctrine that emphasized efficiency over devastation. What followed shocked both the hegemony and the Galactic Council observers who were monitoring the situation from hidden observation posts throughout the system. The humans didn't fight like any species the galaxy had ever encountered. Instead of engaging in direct confrontation, Commander Torres used the Guardian's superior maneuverability to stay just outside the Dreadnought's optimal firing range while systematically disabling its weapon systems. The human ship would dart in, fire a precise volley, then retreat before the enemy could respond effectively. "Impossible," breathed Thrax as his weapons officer reported another turret destroyed. "They're targeting our weak points with surgical precision. How do they know our ship's design vulnerabilities?" The answer lay in humanity's unique approach to warfare. Where most species develop tactics based on their own evolutionary backgrounds, humans had spent millennia fighting each other, learning to analyze and exploit every possible weakness in enemy designs. Their military doctrine was based on adaptability and innovation rather than brute force. "Sir, they've disabled our primary missile batteries," reported another officer. "Our main guns are operating at 60% efficiency." But the real surprise came when the hegemony launched their boarding pods, expecting to overwhelm the smaller human ship through direct assault. What they encountered was something that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of human nature forever. The boarding pods penetrated the Guardian's hull and disgorged dozens of cybernetically enhanced warriors, each one bred for close combat, and equipped with the finest weapons hegemony technology could provide. They expected to face terrified crew members or perhaps desperate defenders armed with primitive weapons. Instead, they found Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez and her Marine detachment waiting for them. Vasquez was a veteran of 3 major conflicts and had trained specifically for boarding actions. More importantly, she represented something unique in galactic civilization, a human soldier. Not a warrior driven by bloodlust or conquest, but a professional military operative trained to protect others at the cost of her own life. The battle that followed in the corridors of the Guardian became the stuff of legend. The hegemony warriors, accustomed to facing civilians or poorly trained militia, suddenly found themselves engaged with opponents who fought with tactical precision, coordinated teamwork, and an unbreakable determination to protect their ship and crew. Vasquez's team used the ship's internal layout to their advantage, channeling the attackers into predetermined kill zones while providing covering fire for wounded comrades. They fought not with rage or bloodlust, but with the calm professionalism of people who had trained for this exact scenario. "Contact front," called out Corporal Liu as hegemony warriors rounded a corner into their prepared position. "Multiple hostiles engaging now." The Marines' weapons were designed for precision rather than destruction, firing ammunition that would disable rather than obliterate their targets. Even in the heat of combat, they followed rules of engagement designed to minimize unnecessary casualties, but it was Sergeant Vasquez herself who would prove that the Galactic Council's fears about human violence had been both completely wrong and completely justified, just not in the way they had expected. When a group of hegemony warriors broke through toward the ship's civilian research staff, Vasquez made a decision that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. She stepped directly into their path, armed with nothing but her sidearm, and an unshakable belief in her duty to protect others. "Not today," she said quietly, and opened fire. The corridor erupted in chaos as Sergeant Elena Vasquez faced down 6 cybernetically enhanced hegemony warriors, each standing nearly twice her height and armed with weapons designed to tear through starship hulls. Behind her, the ship's civilian researchers huddled in terror, their only protection a single human soldier who refused to yield ground. The first warrior charged, its cybernetic legs propelling it forward with inhuman speed. Vasquez didn't flinch. Instead, she dropped to one knee, aimed with mechanical precision, and put 3 rounds into the creature's knee joint. The warrior crashed to the deck, its momentum carrying it past her position where a well-placed shot to its power coupling ended the threat permanently. "Impossible," hissed the second attacker through its breathing apparatus. No single being could react that quickly. Vasquez's response was to demonstrate exactly what human military training could achieve when combined with adrenaline and absolute determination. She moved through the group of attackers like a force of nature, each motion calculated and efficient. She used their size against them, forcing them to engage her in the narrow corridor where their numbers became a disadvantage. What the hegemony warriors didn't understand was that they were facing something unprecedented in galactic civilization. A human soldier fighting to protect others, not motivated by conquest or personal glory, but by a simple, unbreakable code that demanded she place the lives of innocents above her own survival. The battle lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds. When it was over, 6 of the galaxy's most feared warriors lay disabled or dead, and 1 human marine stood bleeding but unbroken over their bodies. The civilian researchers behind her were unharmed. "Sergeant." "Report," came Commander Torres's voice over the intercom. "Corridor secured, sir," Vasquez replied, reloading her weapon with steady hands despite the blood running down her left arm. "Hostiles neutralized. No civilian casualties." Across the ship, similar scenes played out as the human crew demonstrated something that neither the Galactic Council nor the hegemony had expected. They were indeed as dangerous as their reputation suggested, but only when protecting others. Their capacity for violence was matched by an equally powerful restraint and sense of purpose. The tide of the boarding action turned decisively. Hegemony warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds found themselves outmaneuvered, outfought, and ultimately defeated by a handful of human defenders who refused to be intimidated by superior numbers or enhanced physiology. In the ship's command center, Commander Torres coordinated the defense, while simultaneously continuing his tactical engagement with the hegemony dreadnought. The larger ship's weapons were now operating at less than 30% efficiency, and its boarding attempt had failed completely. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "enemy ship is beginning to disengage. They're powering down weapons and attempting to withdraw." Torres studied the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "Negative. They came here to attack innocent civilians. They don't get to just leave and try again somewhere else." What followed demonstrated another aspect of human military doctrine that the galaxy had never encountered: the concept of proportional response escalating to decisive action. The humans had initially used minimum force, targeting only weapon systems and avoiding unnecessary destruction. But the hegemony's attack on civilians had crossed a line that activated different protocols entirely. The Guardian began a systematic hunt of the retreating dreadnought, its smaller size and superior maneuverability allowing it to stay in the larger ship's blind spots while targeting critical systems. But Torres wasn't trying to destroy the ship, he was trying to disable it completely. "Target their hyperspace generators," he ordered. "They're not leaving this system until they answer for what they tried to do here." The precision of the attack was surgical. Human weapons designed for efficiency rather than spectacle carved through the dreadnought's defenses and eliminated its ability to escape. Within minutes, the massive warship that had terrorized countless worlds found itself dead in space, helpless before a ship a fraction of its size. "This is Commander Torres of the United Earthship Guardian," came the transmission to the disabled dreadnought. "You are hereby ordered to surrender and prepare to be boarded. Any hostile action will result in the complete destruction of your vessel." War Marshal Thrax stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. His mighty dreadnought, capable of reducing worlds to ash, had been defeated by two primitive ships with crews that numbered in the hundreds rather than thousands. The impossible had become reality, and he found himself facing a choice between surrender and annihilation. "How?" he whispered to his tactical officer. "How did they defeat us so completely?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep in space, hidden behind sensor shadows and gravitational anomalies, the Galactic Council's observation ships had been recording every moment of the engagement. For the first time in galactic history, they had witnessed humans in actual combat. And the reality was far different from their fears. "They're not conquerors," realized Chancellor Zarian as he studied the battle recordings. "They're protectors. Their violence serves a purpose beyond destruction." The revelation was staggering. The Galactic Council had spent months fearing humanity's capacity for war, but they had completely misunderstood the purpose behind that capacity. Humans weren't dangerous because they loved violence. They were dangerous because they would do anything to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. "Look at their tactics," pointed out Intelligence Director Kylath. Every action was calculated to minimize casualties while maximizing effectiveness. They could have destroyed the hegemony ship in the opening moments of combat, but instead they chose to disable it. They're warriors, but they're warriors with conscience. The behavior patterns displayed during the battle told a story of a species that had indeed evolved beyond its primitive aggressive phase, but had retained the capacity for violence when necessary. More importantly, they had developed the wisdom to know when that necessity arose. "The boarding action is the most revealing," added the xenopsychologist consultant. "Observe Sergeant Vasquez's behavior. She was outnumbered 6-1 by superior opponents, but she never hesitated to place herself between them and the civilians. This isn't the behavior of a predator, it's the behavior of a protector." As the immediate crisis resolved with the hegemony's surrender, the Galactic Council faced a new reality. They had been preparing for first contact with a species they believed would threaten galactic peace. But instead they had discovered potential guardians of that peace. "We need to reassess everything," declared Chancellor Zarian. "Our entire understanding of human nature has been fundamentally flawed." In the Kepler 442 system, Commander Torres was dealing with the immediate aftermath of the engagement. The hegemony dreadnought was secured, its crew detained, and its threat neutralized. But the larger questions remained: who were these other observers in the system? And what did this encounter mean for humanity's future among the stars? "Captain Chun," Torres contacted the Pioneer's Dream. "I think it's time we found out who else has been watching us." The real first contact was about to begin. But now it would happen on very different terms than anyone had expected. The first official contact between humanity and the Galactic Council took place in the most unlikely of circumstances. Instead of the carefully planned diplomatic meetings both sides had envisioned, it happened in the aftermath of a battle, with a defeated hegemony dreadnought drifting powerless between them and the crystalline world of New Harmony serving as an unwitting witness. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Pioneer's Dream, studying the sensor readings that had just revealed the presence of multiple cloaked vessels throughout the system. The ships were using technology far beyond human understanding, but their attempts at concealment had been compromised when they moved to get better observation angles during the recent battle. "Commander Torres," she transmitted to the Guardian, "are you seeing this? We've got at least 8 unknown contacts, all using active stealth systems. They've been watching us." "Confirmed," came Torres's reply. "And judging by their positioning, they've been here the whole time. The question is, are they friends or just more enemies waiting their turn?" The answer came in the form of a transmission using mathematical principles as a universal language base. The message was clearly structured as a peaceful greeting, but its very existence meant that humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Chancellor Zarian had spent hours debating with the emergency council session about how to make first contact. The humans' decisive victory over the hegemony had completely changed the political calculus. Instead of approaching dangerous primitives, they were now dealing with a species that had just demonstrated both military capability and moral restraint. We proceed with caution, Zarian had decided. But we proceed, they've earned the right to know they're not alone. The holographic message that appeared on the human ship's view screens was carefully crafted to appear as non-threatening as possible. Chancellor Zarian himself appeared in the transmission, his four-armed form dressed in ceremonial robes of peace rather than the formal regalia of office. "Greetings, brave defenders," his words came through the translation matrix. "I am Chancellor Zarian of the Galactic Council, representing 17 peaceful species across this sector of space. We have been observing your species for some time, and we must confess that your recent actions have challenged all of our preconceptions about your nature." Captain Chen exchanged glances with her bridge crew. First contact with an advanced alien civilization. Every human had dreamed of this moment, but none had imagined it would happen like this. Your response to the hegemony threat demonstrates that humanity possesses not only the capacity for decisive action, but also the wisdom to use that capacity in defense of others. Zarian continued, "We would very much like to meet with you formally and discuss the possibility of peaceful relations between our peoples." Commander Torres's tactical mind was already analyzing the implications. "Captain, if they've been observing us for some time, they know about Earth. They know about our capabilities. The fact that they're approaching us now, after seeing us in combat, suggests they're not afraid of us. Or they've decided we're worth the risk," Chun replied. "Signal them back. Let them know we're interested in peaceful contact, but make it clear we have questions about this observation they mentioned." The response from the human ships was measured and professional, exactly what the Galactic Council had hoped for after witnessing the disciplined restraint shown during the battle. Captain Chen's message was direct but diplomatic. "Chancellor Zarian, we welcome the opportunity for peaceful contact between our species. However, we're naturally curious about the extent and nature of your previous observations of humanity. What followed was perhaps the most honest first contact conversation in galactic history. Instead of diplomatic evasions and careful half-truths, both sides found themselves compelled toward complete honesty by the circumstances of their meeting. We must confess," Zarian transmitted, "that we initially observed your species with considerable concern. Your history of conflict and your rapid technological development led us to fear that you might pose a threat to galactic peace. We were prepared to implement containment measures." The admission sent ripples of shock through both human crews. The idea that advanced alien civilizations had been watching Earth and debating whether to contain humanity was sobering, but Chien appreciated the honesty. "We understand your concerns," she replied. "Our history has indeed been marked by conflict. But we've learned from our mistakes, and we've developed principles and institutions designed to prevent the repetition of our worst behaviors." "So we have observed," came Zarian's response. "Your restraint in dealing with the hegemony, your protection of the Altarian world despite having no obligation to do so, and your precision in applying only necessary force. These actions speak to a maturity we had not expected." As the conversation continued, other council ships began dropping their stealth systems and revealing themselves. The display was impressive vessels representing 17 different species, each one designed according to radically different aesthetic and technological principles. The diversity was staggering, from the crystalline geometric forms of Vorthek ships to the organic, flowing lines of Milari vessels. Commander Torres found himself reassessing everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the universe. "Captain, we're looking at technologies that are centuries, maybe millennia, ahead of ours. The fact that they're approaching us as equals rather than primitives to be managed suggests they see something in us worth respecting." The breakthrough moment came when Sergeant Vasquez was invited to participate in the communications. Her voice, still slightly hoarse from her recent combat, carried across space to the council chambers where representatives of 17 species listened with rapt attention. "You fought with remarkable skill against superior numbers," transmitted the Corvani delegate. "But what impressed us most was that you fought to protect others, not for conquest or glory." "This is rare in our experience." "It's not rare where I come from," Vasquez replied simply. "It's what soldiers do. We stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. That's the job." The simple declaration hit the Galactic Council like a revelation. Here was a species that had not only evolved beyond their primitive aggressive phase, but had institutionalized the protection of others as a fundamental principle of their military forces. "We have much to learn from each other," Chancellor Zarian concluded. "Your species brings a perspective on conflict resolution that we lack. We have achieved peace through avoidance of confrontation, but you have achieved peace through the willingness to confront those who would destroy peace." The formal invitation came later that day. Humanity was invited to send representatives to the Galactic Council chambers for preliminary discussions about membership and mutual cooperation. But the real breakthrough had already occurred in those. First, honest exchanges about fear, misconception, and the surprising discovery that two completely different approaches to civilization could complement each other. "We're going to need a bigger ship," Commander Torres commented as he looked at the coordinates for the council chambers, located in a massive space station at the heart of galactic civilization. "We're going to need a bigger perspective on everything," Captain Chun replied. "The universe just got a lot more interesting." As preparations began for formal diplomatic contact, the disabled hegemony dreadnought served as a stark reminder of why the meeting was taking place. The galaxy was not entirely peaceful, and sometimes peace required those willing to fight for it. The Galactic Council had found their protectors, and humanity had found their place among the stars. It wasn't the first contact either side had expected, but it was exactly the first contact both sides needed. 6 months later, the Galactic Council chambers had been transformed. Where once 17 peaceful species had gathered to debate the containment of a dangerous new civilization, now 18 species worked together to address threats that none could face alone. The addition of humanity had created ripple effects throughout galactic society that no one could have predicted. The formal induction ceremony had taken place 3 months earlier, with Captain Chun and Commander Torres representing Earth in the Grand Chambers. But the real changes had begun immediately after first contact, when humanity's unique approach to problem-solving started influencing council policies across multiple sectors. "The hegemony remnants are moving again," reported intelligence Director Kylath during the latest security briefing. "3 more worlds in the Outer Rim have gone silent, and our passive observation protocols haven't yielded any actionable intelligence." Before humanity's arrival, this would have prompted another round of diplomatic discussions, economic sanctions, and carefully worded protest communications. The Galactic Council had always relied on peaceful solutions because they lacked the capability for anything else. "Recommendations?" asked Chancellor Zarian. Though he already knew what the newest council member would propose, Admiral Torres, promoted after the Kepler 442 incident, stood before the holographic display showing the affected systems. The human section of the chambers had grown from a single delegation to a full military liaison office. As it became clear that humanity's strategic thinking was invaluable for dealing with external threats. "The passive approach isn't working," Torres stated bluntly. "The hegemony operates by fear and intimidation. Every world they take without resistance encourages them to take more. We need to demonstrate that there are consequences for their actions." The Milari representative rustled his leaves nervously. "You're suggesting military intervention?" "We've maintained peace for thousands of years through diplomatic means." "You've maintained peace among civilized species," corrected Major Elena Vasquez, now serving as the head of the Joint Defense Initiative. "But the hegemony isn't civilized. They understand only strength and the willingness to use it." The transformation of Sergeant Vasquez into Major Vasquez had been one of the most visible symbols of humanity's integration into galactic society. Her actions during the boarding action had made her something of a legend among council species. Proof that human warriors were driven by protection rather than conquest. "The Joint Patrol Initiative has been successful," added Captain Chun, now serving as Earth's primary diplomatic representative. Mixed crews of human and council personnel have prevented 6 hegemony incursions in the past 2 months. The Joint Patrol Program had been humanity's first major contribution to galactic security. Human tactical expertise combined with advanced council technology had created patrol fleets far more effective than either side could have achieved alone. More importantly, it had allowed other species to witness human military doctrine firsthand. "I must admit," said the Altarian representative, his crystalline form brightening with confidence, "having human protection has allowed our people to return to their exploration programs. We no longer live in fear of external threats." The psychological impact of humanity's presence had been profound. Species that had lived in constant fear of aggressive expansion could now pursue scientific and cultural advancement without constantly looking over their shoulders. The knowledge that someone was willing and able to stand against threats like the hegemony had liberated an entire civilization from defensive thinking. The Corvani Energy Research Project has yielded remarkable results, reported the Energy Being delegate. Collaboration with human physicists has accelerated our timeline by decades. This was the other unexpected benefit of first contact. Human scientific methodology, shaped by centuries of competitive research and rapid technological development, had proven remarkably compatible with council research techniques. Joint projects were producing breakthroughs neither side could have achieved independently. "The cultural exchange programs continue to exceed expectations," added the Zephyrian representative. "Human art forms have introduced concepts of overcoming adversity and triumph against odds that were previously unknown to our philosophy." Chancellor Zarian reflected on how dramatically the galaxy had changed. Since that first fearful council session, the species they had once viewed as dangerous conquerors had become the galaxy's greatest defenders. More than that, they had become teachers, showing other species that peace was not the absence of conflict, but the presence of those willing to stand against chaos. "We have a proposal for consideration," Admiral Torres announced, activating a new holographic display. "Intelligence suggests the hegemony is preparing for a major offensive against the Centauri Federation. We recommend a preemptive strike to eliminate their forward staging bases." The suggestion would have been unthinkable a year earlier. But the Council had learned that sometimes preventing war required the willingness to fight before innocence suffered. The human concept of peace through strength had revolutionized galactic strategic thinking. "The Centauri Federation has 30 billion inhabitants across 12 worlds," Major Vasquez added. "If the hegemony attack succeeds, we're looking at the largest genocide in galactic history. We have the capability to prevent it, but only if we act now." The debate that followed was different from the old council discussions. Where once there would have been endless diplomatic maneuvering, now there was focused discussion of practical solutions. Humanity had taught the galaxy to think in terms of action and consequence rather than just hope and good intentions. "The human approach has proven effective," concluded Chancellor Zarian after the vote was tallied. "We will authorize the preemptive strike. But we do so with the understanding that our human allies will ensure proportional response and minimal casualties." "Understood," Admiral Torres replied. "We'll disable their capability to threaten civilians, nothing more. The hegemony leadership will face justice through proper legal channels." As the council session ended and representatives dispersed to their various ships and stations, the transformation of galactic civilization continued. Human military academies were training officers from dozens of species in new tactical doctrines. Joint research facilities were pushing the boundaries of science and technology. Cultural exchange programs were spreading human concepts of resilience and determination throughout peaceful worlds, but perhaps the most significant change was psychological. The galaxy no longer lived in fear. Knowing that someone was willing to stand between them and the darkness had freed entire civilizations to reach for heights they had never dared attempt. 6 months earlier, the Galactic Council had feared that humanity would bring war to their peaceful galaxy. Instead, humanity had brought something far more valuable, the certainty that peace was worth fighting for. And the knowledge that someone would always be willing to do that fighting. Major Vasquez stood in the observation deck of the new Joint Command Station, looking out at a fleet of ships from 18 different species, preparing for their mission to the hegemony staging areas. Each vessel was crewed by beings who had learned that sometimes the greatest act of peace was the willingness to fight for it. "Ready to go save another world?" asked Captain Chun, joining her at the observation window. "Always," Vasquez replied, her hand resting on the sidearm that had become a symbol of protection throughout the galaxy. "It's what we do." The universe was vast and full of dangers, but it was no longer a dark place. Wherever chaos threatened, wherever innocence faced destruction, 18 civilizations stood ready to respond. And leading them were the humans, the species the galaxy had once feared as conquerors, but had come to cherish as their guardians. The stars had never been safer, and they never would be again, because humanity had taken its place among them not as destroyers, but as protectors of all who sought to live in peace.